Three, two, one. So, hi everyone, and welcome to another lockdown interview with an instructor. And today I have the awesome Karen Winspear with me. How are you, Karen?
Morning to you, Mel Bridger. How are you too? I'm not doing too bad. We're a little bit like that, aren't we? We don't know what day of the week it is. We don't know if we're teaching legs, bums and tums or HIIT or Zumba. We haven't got a clue.
No, I'd wholeheartedly agree with that. The only thing that Karen and I have discovered is that we have bins put out on the same day. So we know it's bin day. So bin day's
That's it.
Friday. So
That's it.
Karen does some wonderful things within the fitness industry, especially those with additional learning needs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But first of all, Karen, could you just, obviously I know who you are, but could you just tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do within the fitness industry?
Yeah, I'm Karen Winspear. I live up in the northeast of England, up in between Middlesbrough and Whitby. So I'm on the gorgeous northeast coast, near a lovely coastal town called Saltburn by the Sea. So we've got piers. I'm 2 miles away from the sea, which is wonderful, which has really helped my mental health during this lockdown. And I'm about 5 miles away from the beautiful North Yorkshire Moors, really and it's called Goathland, which is where Harry Potter was filmed, where the train station was in the first film. So I've got a lovely scenic area that I can escape to. But at present, I'm stuck in the house because son's got COVID. But ordinarily, I'm a fitness instructor, qualified ATM 10 years ago, and 5 years ago, qualified with children, and then autism in sport, and then just more recently, ability, not disability, with the amazing Sam Nicholson. So the last 5 years, work has taken me more into children and SEN, special needs, disability, profound disability, and especially maybe coming from the Zumba Gold qualification or license. The Zumba Gold took me into 50 plus and then into older adults, and I work heavily with Teesside Dementia, Age UK, and deliver a lot of older adult seated chair classes. But that's not just it. The older seated chair classes are now SEN and dementia friendly, so we can adapt. What I'm loving probably more this year is adapting choreography to suit those who maybe get forgotten about.
It really pushes our boundaries, doesn't it? So I did the ability not disability course with Sam, and it just scratched the surface for me. And I think I'm realizing as I'm getting older, I'm wanting to work with different demographics, and I love everything that you've just said. I think that's phenomenal, and I'm finding myself gravitating towards that as well. But that isn't all you do, isn't it? You've recently launched a facility, haven't you, in the midst of all this?
Well, a bit crazy. For the last 10 years, I'm a big supporter of community. I love all things community. So even before I was a fitness instructor, I came from accountancy background, worked in an office, computer says no on the computer all the day. So I was a lot bigger. So a lot of my students, participants have seen me in my town and village and area be a lot bigger. So I was a chunky 19 stone and a size 22, and at 36, and at the time you can see my boys were a little bit littler then up on the picture, so they were 3 and 6, and I had shooting pains in my chest and down my arms, and at 36 sat in an office, and always in an office of 50, a Friday's fish and chip day, and there's always a birthday because there's 50 people in your office, so there's always a birthday every week. And I wasn't helping myself. Now, years previously, I was one of the 1991 crew who loved step and aerobics and my community, and loved group fitness. I was a big group fitness fan, but I was the one at the back. So I was the one who had the spot at the back row. And I thought, this is crazy. So in my spare time or in my day off, I used to run a toddler group in the village. So I saw hundreds of families over that time. It was before Shoe was start and a lot of children's facilities and centres opened. So I'd already made a lot of groundwork and a lot of trust had come in community. And I thought, why couldn't I just start doing aerobics? So I went to local college. ATM was the base, isn't it? ATM level 2, your base. And really dance choreography I loved. I was one of the first that went into the Zumba world. So I'm 10 years into Zumba in January and love all things Zumba. But then I think moving on and seeing, you know, me lose weight in the first year, I went from a size 22 over a 2-year period to a comfortable 12.
Wow.
I've never been an 8, 10, and you know, I don't personify that, you know, I'm a human being, and I love that mechanism of thinking I'm real. So we've always got an Easter, we've always got Christmas falls on the same day, you know, even in COVID we're still going to have a Christmas, and there always seems to be a birthday and an all-inclusive holiday. So, you know, I can put on weight and I can take off weight, and as much as I've got, you know, level 2 nutrition, I am a absolute devil for cake. And I love eating, and I think it's possibly, I think in this, you know, in this isolation now, it's one thing that we can control. And I think I'm 47 and a Virgo, I was very, you know, I like to know what's happening next, and we've been thrown in the mix, haven't we? So I think what we've done is look at what we can control in the house, and the kitchen was one of them. So I'm being a little bit of a devil and put on a bit of weight during COVID, but do you know what? It'll come off. It came off before, it'll come off again. But I think, you know, right now during the second wave, it's made me think, you know, drink better, fuel better, eat better, feel better. So I think first set was, we were thrown in the mix. And especially if you're self-employed, that's your main income. And, you know, we were a bit of a loss. But during COVID, I set about that the community supported me and thought, what could we do to support everybody else? So for the last 10 years, sort of built up my business, quite organic. It sounds really corny, but quite organically. I don't advertise a great deal. And I think if you can sell your wares and not spend a great deal advertising, you know, in the fitness industry, we see so much in the diet and fitness industry work hand in hand. And I think there's a lot of sales pitches. But I think if you're regional and you don't need £20,000 a month like they're telling you, I want to just survive. I want a nice house and I want a nice family and I want a work and happy balance. So what I thought was, 10 years in, is it something that we could, our community family, our community fitness family, could we support others in our area? So whilst I've always been a supporter of local schools and church halls, and I've been in every village and took me bags and me speakers and been in the rain and the cold. And I'm not telling you something you haven't already done, Mel. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a single site? So I looked into a unit, and really the community have been vital. The community have been essential. And through lockdown, weirdly, our centre opened on the 1st of November. Granted, we closed on the 4th, but it's there for when we're safe to go back to it. And we just had the weirdest journey this year through lockdown. We took stock of the unit on the 1st of February and we opened the 1st of November, and we haven't had £1 of funding. Everything's come from community, raffles, tombolas, bonkers bingos on Zoom. I mean, blooming heck, Zoom. What would we have done without Zoom this year? But it's been pretty damn awesome, that community. But don't you find that though, Mel, this year people are going to support local, and we're going to look to what's in our region. You know, we're quick on buying from Amazon, but now I see so much on social media, buy from the local body shop rep, or buy from the Avon, or, you know, the little trader on the high street that's maybe opening up for web sales instead. So I think we've become very loyal to our regions, and I think that was certainly something that's happened to us across COVID. What we were lucky in the fact that we got 2 special needs groups in, even just in the 3 or 4 days that we were open, 2 older adult seated chair classes, and some mindfulness. So it's not just about the crazy, it's not just about the lifting the heart and being like Tigger. It needs to be that, you know, we've got that emphasis of calm as well. And I think coming out of this, our mental health's going to be so affected, isn't it, that we need to look at the work. I think people are going to work at the work and lifestyle balance, but even more so this year. We're going to look at family first, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I could listen to you all day. I just think it's incredible. And you know, when you're talking about like all the stuff that you've done to raise money without getting any funding is incredible in itself, because we know how difficult it is and how much it costs to have a facility. You know, I don't even own my own facility. That was a route I was going to go down, and like for me, I'm lucky that I didn't have one, you know, and
Wow.
still had to pivot and go online. And I think that we are finding as community fitness instructors, and I live in a small town, so I'm from Birmingham, but like I live about 20 minutes outside, so comparatively it's a small town. And what, like you've said, like I remember in the first lockdown, it was all the small businesses that people were like, well, we can't go anywhere else, we're too scared to go in the supermarket, so we'll go there. And a lot of small businesses survived as a result of community. And I've even seen new businesses start during COVID. You know, they might have been small, but people seem to be more receptive to small businesses now, as opposed to being, and I love Amazon, I'm not gonna lie,
I know.
you know, but I find myself now looking at what small businesses are offering and being quicker to go down that route to help them survive, you know. And I think that's really, really important. Incredible, just absolutely
it's crazy to think that, you know, our big department stores and, you know, a great deal of big high-end gyms and a lot of, you know, some of these businesses that are going out of business have been out of business, and they'll have been trading for years. For instance, even in lockdown, we had we'd raised about £20,000 last year and into this year with Zumbathons and lots of funding. So I put 6 months rent down on the lease. And obviously that 6 months went because it was over April and Easter and no work would happen. How very weird that furlough was granted by the government, and basically the building company that had promised their time for free, they were paid by the government. So in effect, they could work for, because Senses Wellbeing Centre is a community interest company. That means it's not for profit, and whatever goes in will get paid out or get invested into it. More things will be bought, and sessions would be run much more reasonable and probably effective for every person, every household. And I think that's, you know, sometimes fitness is definitely out of our reach. You know, especially people on low income or those with single parent families. I work a lot with kinship, which is grandparents plus, especially if the parents aren't there. So you're looking at different dynamics all the time. We don't always have a mum and dad, 2 kids, a picket fence and a cat and a dog and a budgie. So there's so many family dynamics now that we need to adapt for that. Especially, I did a little survey on social media and said, what would be the barriers to fitness? That was a big one for me. What stops you going? And a lot of it would be childcare. So adapt the sessions, make them family inclusive, make them SEN family inclusive. So drop those barriers to whatever is the problem. Wonderful comedian on Channel 4, I forget her name now, that'll be the menopause. But she's got cerebral palsy, and she went and did a wonderful little topic, really. She went to 3 gyms in the centre of London, and one was under a department store, so it was like in a basement, like a car park type of thing. And there was no the electronic stairs. What was that? The electronic stairs? They weren't working. Escalator, thank you. The escalator wasn't working. Well, obviously with her disability, she would find that really tricky getting down concrete steps. Lift wasn't working. So there was 3 variances of a gym, and it was like, wow, how unaccessible is that? So it was, where's the lift? How can I get to it? So even though one of the centres there was a lift, once you got there, can I access the disabled changing? And they opened the doors, and there was all of the cleaning equipment there. So there was a buffer and a hoover and sweeping brushes. So obviously their market wasn't really catering for disability or making it accessible or inclusive. So once she got in there, you know, she got changed and they moved all the gear out. She went and did a 40-minute session, but then she wanted to have a shower and the shower wasn't working. So how many times has that facility been checked? Because if you go into a supermarket toilets, it's checked every 15 minutes. This toilet's been cleaned, this toilet's been checked.
Not at all.
So it was a bit frustrating. So with regards to senses, I listened to a lot of forums of parents. I listened to a lot of bad experiences and wanted to bridge that gap. So where, for instance, even locally to me, I teach a glow-in-the-dark class with glow sticks that's SEN inclusive, lots of Disney tracks and lots of chart tracks. And the engagement's been brilliant. But what was worrying and frustrating and upsetting a lot was that a 12-year-old needed to get changed on the disabled toilet floor because there wasn't a changing table or a changing station for a 12-year-old. So luckily, even through COVID, we've managed to get an adult changing table from an old people's home that was redundant, and just from Whitby up the road. So even now, and these things cost. Yeah. So it's been wonderful that we've got changing facility. We don't need to have a child or a young adult changed on the floor. In these times, it's inconceivable, isn't it, that needs to happen, but it does.
And the thing is, if we don't talk about it, if we don't actually make these issues public, I think it's something that flies underneath the radar for many. And I don't think that I think it's ill education, not necessarily that people are I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, not that we don't care.
No.
But it's literally because it's not brought to the forefront of our minds, and so it just goes straight over our heads or missed or under the radar. So I think it's important, really, that we talk more about things like this.
Don't you think communication's a good one? Ask the question. Ask the question. What would you like to see? What would your son or daughter love? So a lot of questions now is, especially young Downs adults, what would Tom have loved when he was 12? Do you know what? He'd have loved a five-a-side football. Right, well, we've got a hall now that's suitable and they're safe, and we've got a sprung floor, and it's what would you like to see? It's not just about me, an ETM instructor that's now kids qualified and additional needs qualified. What would you like to see? And I think we're missing out on such, there's a market there that have been forgotten about for so long, and that's what I'm trying to fight for for the underdog, and fight for those who have who seem to don't get heard an awful lot. And that's what I want now, is to bridge that gap between we're able-bodied to go to any gym, any private gym, any outside class, any boot camp, any Zumba. We're able-bodied to do that. And what I want to do is to be able to encourage those, whether they are special needs, additional needs, anybody with mental health issues, to be able to say to them that door's open. What's been pretty wonderful the last 3 weeks is that Senses was opened, and a lot of parents said, Karen, how do we get referred to you? There's no referral needed. There's a front door, it's accessible, it's on one level, all the floor is in one level, the door's open, and that's your referral, you walk in.
So you've taken the barrier away, haven't you?
Yeah. But that isn't easy. That's took me 5 years to see the errors, to see what's gone wrong, and then think, what can we do? What can we do together? So big thing is shout out for everyone who comes to classes, because I think, over the last 10 years, we've done things like support the flower beds in our local village, so supported by Karen Winspear Fitness, or we've sponsored a under 13s girls football team at Skelton United where we live. But that was great. But imagine that our rent that ordinarily went to the community village halls and the local schools and academies could then pay the rent on a single site venue, and then be able to allow us to have all those hours. I mean, obviously, me and you together, we probably hit 20 plus classes a week. So that rent on that external property, it's a lot. If it was on a single site, look what we could achieve, to the rest of the population. So that's been where my aim has been the last sort of 18 months. And so thankful to community for helping us get there.
But if you didn't do what you did and the way that you do it, Karen, that support wouldn't necessarily have been forthcoming, so you've been the enabler for all of those people to have something to support that means something to so many, you know. And I know that they must all be truly grateful, and I'm in awe. I'm in total awe of everything that you've achieved.
Sorry, I cry every day.
It's okay. It's okay. You're allowed.
Sometimes in COVID, you forget what you're trying to achieve and who, because you're not seeing them every day. And I think especially older adults as well, the last sort of the last 7 months, their isolation's been horrific. So the first lockdown we had, obviously over 70s were in lockdown for how many weeks? You know, it was crazy not seeing their families. I'm ordinarily in 2 care homes a week and 3 assisted living. So to hear that the residents are in their own room, and that they have got no community room, you know, for even their bingo or karaoke or their fitness, you know, that's worrying, that isolation has just come higher, especially anybody with dementia and Alzheimer's. They're going to feel so powerless that, you know, they're not seeing anybody that they love, and, you know, it's a case of getting fed. I can't imagine being in just in one room and having your ensuite next to you, can you? I can't imagine that. No. So we've got that opportunity of stepping outside our house. Even in first lockdown, we had that hour.
Yes.
And they didn't have that. So seeing their motor skills reduce, seeing their mobility reduce, but then seeing, you know, their cognitive be affected was awful. We got a bit of a lifeline, didn't we, from September and October, because we could take classes back to community. And what was amazing was our local parish council let us have the big assembly hall in the village. And ordinarily that would hold a concert of 200 people. Due to social distancing, we could have 3 meters apart and sat on a chair, and we had all the seated dementia classes for 24. Now it just proves that, you know, they'd come in their mask, 3 or 4 of them still wearing the mask, you know. Beryl, you can take your mask off, you know, because you can trust me now. We're all facing forward. We're not singing, we're not whooping. So there wasn't that extension of breath, and our heart rate wasn't coming up like a Zumba class or like a HIIT class. So it was very safe. And under that canopy, it was wonderful to be able to bring classes back, albeit for 8 weeks. It gave them back that confidence. It gave them that lifeline. Even for 8 weeks, it gave them that sense of purpose. So what I want is those people back. Once it's safe to do so, Senses is there, and we've got a safe space now for 20 odd years. And I don't know about you, Mel, but I don't want to be bouncing about like Tigger in 15 years' time. I'm 47, but now I'm trying to think of myself employed as being, well, maybe if it's not me bouncing about like Tigger, hire someone in that can get the young version of me brought in, but then manage that facility and make sure that those things that I've put in, those seeds that are placed, make sure that it's consistent throughout, that we get 20 odd plus years out of it, and that we leave a legacy that just because we've not, you know, we haven't got a leisure centre, we've got a couple of gyms, but we need to make it accessible, achievable and affordable for all. And I think my hashtag being fitness for all, that cements this year is that it's not just physical fitness, it's that mental agility as well.
I think that's massively important. I think there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done because of everything that you've said, how COVID's impacted. I mean, my aunt was in a care home as well. She unfortunately she died. I know, it's, you know, it's okay, and it's just so it kind of hits home to hear that happening. And, you know, there's a lot of people in these care homes that don't have anybody at all, so it's tough. And I know that my mindset's changed a lot during COVID. You know, I'm like finishing off my active older adults now, and I did the ability, not disability. So I want to do more work with children and older adults next year, and more specialist populations, because like you, I'm nearly 44. I'm trying to think of my future, and invest in myself as well as being able to give back to my community. So I think what you're doing is incredible, and I could talk about it all day. So coping mechanisms then. So I'm going to ask you if you could give, if people are either listening to this on the podcast or they're watching the video, what tips could you give to other predominantly fitness professionals who are going to watch this? for coping, and you know, I guess basically keeping their mindset on track whilst all this is happening?
Definitely. I would, when we first got this, a friend of mine, Alex Cornwall, who's part of Community Fitness Network, we
My
worked together.
boss.
Boss, amazing boss. So Alex and I worked, we fathomed out Zoom, because that was the big one, wasn't it? How are we going to adapt? And I think that was the big one, is do we find a safe space? We adapt our homes, but then are our students, our participants going to follow us? Not everybody did. So there was that uncertainty of income. We're all self-employed. Some of us are employed and self-employed. I'm just self-employed. So my income went from 100% to 15, 20 overnight.
Yeah.
Luckily, our government have been superb. And if you've been in the industry or, you know, submitted your tax returns for the last 3 years, it was given to us by grant, and definitely that helped the situation financially. So I must admit, financially, I haven't been worried, but with regards to opening a unit and having 6 months rent, and then where do we find them? So financially it wasn't personal, but it was, how can I sustain that community project? So yeah, a lot of worry with regards to that. I would definitely say give yourself a break. It's not all about, Alex absolutely give me a rollicking. I was trying to mirror what I was doing in community, trying to put 20 classes a week out on Zoom. Your kitchen or your front room floor or wherever, your garage, is not fit for its purpose. We weren't supposed to be Davina McCall on laminate flooring or concrete or carpet. And obviously, ordinarily, we wouldn't be doing Zumba, you know, on a thick wool carpet or a rug. So there will be a lot of instructors that will have got a few injuries or pulls or ligaments, or, you know, or this isn't happening, or my hips or my knees. So, you know, Alex had said to me, reduce your timetable. You know, that's your first one. We don't have to think that we're still in community, but by providing that lifeline and then giving me a reduced income, it then gave me peace of mind that I'd keep my participants, still earn a little bit, but keep my foot in, you know, keep my hand in, really. But then I lost a class participant, and that was my first loss. So an older adult, cancer, not COVID, but a real character. And you know, in your classes, you know who's your characters, and you know who's the one who you don't look at, or you know the one who's going to be the giggler, or you know the one who's going to be doing the wrong choreography. And you've got that in every dynamic of every class. So for me to lose my first student hit me hard, and I needed to take a week off. And I would say throughout lockdown, and definitely from March, you wouldn't ordinarily work for 10 months and not have a break. So take a break, allow yourself some time. Just because your house is here, don't think I'm in the house constantly. Walks have been my saviour. Nature's been a big one, and definitely going to see the sea. So nature, sky, vitamin D. If I've been having a bad week, food's been my comfort. And I think looking at what sort of gets you through things, food might be that comfort blanket for a little while, but then of course it adds to the hips and adds to the joints, and knees start hurting and hips start hurting, and you know, places start to so I think it's just, again, of that happy medium, planning your food, looking at your fitness pal, looking at your step count, and things that we took for granted back in February, but now it's vital. Do we hit 10,000 steps? Are we drinking 6 glasses of water? Have we got colour on our plate? It's those simple things. So again, going back to senses, I want to deliver free weight management. So rather than offer, you know, the branded diet companies that's at a cost, I wanted to go with the Public Health England attitude and government guidelines of eating less, moving more, drinking better. So I think that needs to come back on me. And I think I've been I've not been my best friend. I've treated myself really badly. I've allowed myself to eat more. I've allowed myself to move less. And I think you know, especially if you're a people person, if you're an ETM instructor, you haven't come into this because you're shy. You've come into this because you want to help. And I think if you are a performer, because we all are, we've got a face on. So even this morning, and my son's got COVID, going out and pretending to be Beyonce, taking the bins out, even just having that little persona of, well, I've got 20 people on Zoom and I'm going to smile. Yeah. And if you do smile, it does make you feel better. If you're there for a purpose. So I think create purpose every day, even if it's going out for a different walk. Alternate your walk, change your walk. I always say to this when people come to me, you know, when we do a little bit of a verbal screening, hi, how are you? What's your normal fitness ethos? What do you do? Oh, well, I walk my dog 6 times a day. My question would be, how old's your dog? Because if you've got a whippet, you're probably going for a good brisk walk. If you're going with a dog that's 14 years old and it's got a gammy leg, you're probably not lifting your heart as much. So then I'd say to them, do you change your terrain? Are you on sand? Are you on a hill? Are you going downhill? Or are you going on the flat? Because some villages that are here are very flat, but some are like this. So alternate your route. And I think you need to do that every day. Alternate your route. Change your pattern, have something different for tea, because it's so easy to have pasta on a Monday and spaghetti bolognese on a Thursday and cottage pie. And, you know, now we're looking to winter weather, we're looking at comfort and warmth. And I think we need to just think, well, we've got that comfort and warmth, we've got our families, and we've got our safety blanket, and we've got our home, but get out, get some vitamin D, get some fresh food, and look at, you know, even if you are in the kitchen, plan something you wouldn't ordinarily eat. You know, look at variation. And I think that's my big thing is variety. Look at lifting your heart and resting your heart. Look at changing eating habits and fueling well.
So it's just simple things, really, and it's great, great advice. So we're gonna have to wrap it up, unfortunately. Where can people find you on social media? So if you want to, you've got a great t-shirt. Would you like to show that?
Oh my goodness, we're just getting lots of things printed. So we've got Senses Wellbeing Centre. The emphasis is obviously on the colours of the rainbow with SEN. So we're getting loads of branded sweatshirts and things now, and hopefully just make a bit more money for Senses. But so you can find me www.senseswellbeingcentre.co.uk. I'm on Facebook, Karen Winspear, and yeah. If you can find me on Zoom, we've got some Zoom classes. We've got 8 classes a week now, not 20. So I took Alex's advice. And we're doing lots of things just with SEN and older adults. Once we get back, once it's safe.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Karen. I really appreciate you talking to me today. It's been great. Like I said, I could have carried on. We'll have to do a part 2 when we come back out of lockdown. So thank you very much for your time, lovely lady.
Take care.
Bye-bye.